I'd like to call this council and committee meeting to order. Before we proceed further, I want to do the land acknowledgement. We begin this meeting by acknowledging that the land upon which we are gathered is the traditional territory of the Adirondack, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe people, including the Mississaugas of the Credit. We're the beneficiaries of ancient agreements, such as the dish with one spoon between the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee, who agreed to share the abundance of the land through peace, friendship, and mutual respect. The two-row wampum, by which the Haudenosaunee welcomed the settlers and agreed to share the land in mutual respect. And the Treaty of Niagara, considered a fundamental document by First Nations in all future relations and treaties with the British. We recognize that we have a responsibility to be stewards of the land in cooperation and collaboration with the Indigenous peoples, not only for one generation, but for all generations to come. We understand that we have an obligation to learn the lessons of our history, educate ourselves about the experiences of the Indigenous people, and seek opportunities to heal the wounds that will result in reconciliation with our Indigenous sisters and brothers. Many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people live and work in Fort Erie. We stand with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live. We have the good fortune to live in a land of such abundance, diversity, and beauty. Let us be vigilant in protecting Turtle Island. And starting with the council meeting, the regular council meeting next, which is July the 24th, I'm going to be asking members of council if you would, in rotation, do the land acknowledgement for the regular council meetings so that you can all participate in that. Madam Clerk, the roll call.
All members of council are present, Your Worship.
Thank you. So we have an addendum this evening which rescinds a previous addendum, and this addendum deletes from our agenda a presentation that was going to be made by Ben Koo with respect to the development at 644 Garrison Road, and also removes from the agenda report IS 16-2023 to provide a further opportunity for various parties to further discuss the Sims Road reconstruction project. So those items will be returning to the agenda at a later date. Just a few announcements. I wanted to comment on the hospital rally on July the 5th, which a number of members of council were present at, along with our MPP and regional councillor, and individuals from as far away as Minden, Ontario, who have a similar situation in their community in terms of reduction of hospital services. That meeting provided an opportunity to have some connection with other individuals, other communities that are facing similar situation to ours, and so we'll be moving forward with trying to create those broader partnerships, and I will be providing members of council with some background information on what's happened since then and what my discussions with the Mayor of Minden involved. Second thing, this past weekend was the Ridgeway Music and Arts Festival. They were blessed with very good weather. It was very comfortable, large turnouts. The car show was fantastic. I think it's been the largest car show that they've had. So congratulations to the board of directors, all of their sponsors, all of the volunteers, and all the people that attended. That was fantastic. And then finally, I just wanted to mention that this Sunday, the Fort Erie Sting men's premier soccer team was to have played against a team from St. Anthony in what is called the Ontario Cup. That's a competition that began in 1901 and now has grown to about 600 teams during the competition. Will start in May. It's a knockout tournament. In some places, there's a round robin tournament to determine who the survivors are. This was to be the first time that Fort Erie has hosted an Ontario Cup soccer game in Fort Erie. And unfortunately, the team from St. Anthony's forfeited. That's the bad news. That meant that there wasn't an opportunity for the community to come out, for there to be a barbecue, for this first of a occasion event to occur in Fort Erie. The good news is the forfeiture does permit the town of Fort Erie to advance to the third round in the Ontario Cup, and that game should be taking place sometime within the next couple of weeks, and we will endeavor to let the community know about that. That competition, that tournament, continues on to semifinal games at selected locations, and then the championship is generally held at the Vaughan National Club in the fall. So that, we'll keep you posted on that. Those are the announcements. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? There being none, there is one public meeting for which I want to give notice, and that is a proposed zoning bylaw amendment, draft plan of subdivision and draft plan of condominium with respect to 3303 Dominion Road. That public meeting will be held on, will be held on Monday, July the 24th, which is the regular council meeting. The information report with respect to that application will be available on our website by 5 p.m. on Wednesday, July the 20th, 2023. We do have a public meeting this evening, and that is with respect, we were to have a public meeting this evening with respect to the proposed community benefits change, but that has been deferred to August the 14th, 2023. And I take it that we don't need a resolution to defer that? Because it's, we don't. Okay. So then that takes us to the consent agenda. And are there any, well, there aren't very many items. There's only two. Are there any items that anyone wishes removed from the consent agenda? Councillor Noyes has the, oh no, that's the special council meeting. Okay, moved by Councillor Dubanow. Are there any questions with respect to the items in the consent agenda? If there are, yes. Sorry, Councillor Noyes.
Thank you, Mayor Redekop. In regards to the land matters, in regards to the Fort Erie Tennis Club, I think that's in there, right?
That's, no. Yeah, that's the land committee, right.
Yeah, that's in the land committee. I do have some questions about that because we didn't really get a lot of information that's been provided to us. I know that the questions I had when it came up before, I don't think it was just me, is how many members there are. Are they from Fort Erie? How many, like I know they have bingos. How much bingo money do they get? What is their budget for the year? That type of thing. And what does the lease actually say? Because I know they came to us to redo one of their tennis courts into a pickleball. And I don't necessarily disagree that's not a bad idea. It's probably a good idea. But I'm just wondering what the lease says and whether it's, if they're leasing the property for 10 years, what is their responsibility for upgrades and maintenance? I don't know what the lease says. And
So Councillor Noyes, the resolution in the land committee minutes was that the land committee supports entry into a 10-year agreement, but that there be an administrative report coming to a future council and committee meeting. So that would be the questions that you've raised. I would hope the CAO will make note of. So those are things that need to be addressed in that report. And if there are any other questions that members of council have with respect to that, they could do the same. Before I go to Councillor Christensen, Councillor Noyes, I want to let you finish.
yeah, yes, I'm also on the outstanding land matters under waterfront encroachment number 3. They talked about the shale located at the Waverley and part of Lake Erie has a unique geology spanning 30,000 years. I'm just wondering, how does that affect what we're going to be doing with this area?
The waterfront?
It's under, does it also noted that the shale located at the Waverley and part of Lake Erie has a unique geology spanning 30,000 years?
These were the discussions about the healing garden. Well, I don't know that they're going to be encroaching into that area. I don't know whether the CAO has any information. They met at Waverley Park because that's the general location where there will be some type of park, a healing garden, some type of indigenous park. I think they were just referencing the waterfront as being significant in terms of the indigenous presence, but I don't believe there's anything that's going to be occurring on that waterfront.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Christensen.
Thank you. Through your worship, I would very much like in the with respect to the tennis club draft contract or memorandum of agreement to have a consideration with respect to the nature of some of the programming and the target populations that would be invited to participate in programming at the tennis club.
Yep, that's not a problem. We have that information. My understanding is that last year they had 130 children enrolled in their junior tennis program. I'm advised that that's the largest in Ontario and that they're expecting to have perhaps 150 this year. So that's information as well that I would expect to be in the report as it comes forward.
Thank you.
Any other questions with respect to the items in the consent agenda? If there are none, then I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? None opposed? That is carried. That then takes us to Planning and Development Services, and that would be Councillor Dubanow.
Yes, it would, Your Worship. Planning and Development Services is in session for the evening. We have no presentations or delegations this evening. However, we have one report, which is a welcome change compared to how busy this agenda typically is. It's PDS 46-2023, which is returning to us, and it was previously moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Flagg. That report is now on the floor. Are there any questions or comments from Council? Councillor Noyes.
Yes, I think this is a report that obviously came to us before, and we talked about moving the property further back so there'd be more driveway for parking. Was there any consensus or any change done? I couldn't quite see it.
Yeah, we had I think there was a discussion about this during Planning and Development Services. Ms. Delwaria, do you just want to fill in the situation with the driveway?
Yes, Mr. Chair. So through you to the councillor, we had a discussion with the owner of the property. The concerns that were raised at the last council meetings were about parking. So we were able to achieve the parking, we were able to resolve the parking issue. They are providing 2 parking spaces in the driveway and 1 in the garage. So they are exceeding the parking requirement that is required by the zoning bylaw. There was some discussion about moving the house back, but because there is a great difference on the property, and they were able to achieve the parking issue, resolve the parking issue. So this was a memo that we came back with.
Councillor Noyes?
Thank you, that's all.
Thank you. Your Worship.
Yeah, this is the property where there had been some site alteration, and the memo that was attached to our agenda indicated that in fact there had been some site alteration without municipal approval, and there had been soil removed from the property. Apparently that's going to be returned. But my question is, if there was a contravention of the site alteration bylaw, is there a repercussion?
That is a good question, Your Worship, and I'm wondering if I should send that to the CEO or Ms. Delwaria. If you want to take that, I'll let staff fight over who wants to answer that question best.
I can try answering that. So there was a contravention. They had removed the dirt, but by the time it came to our notice, the applicant had said to the CBO that he has put the dirt back. There was no way for us to confirm if the dirt had been replaced on the property, but so much time has passed, so I think the only resolution that after my discussion with the CBO is that they would have to come in with a building permit application to construct that house, and at that time we would be reviewing the grading and resolving the outstanding issues. It would be ensured through the revision of the grading plan, review of that the drainage and the grading would be addressed to that process.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Well, that's not exactly what the memo says. The memo says that there was a CRM submitted in November 2022 regarding topsoil removal. That's not ancient history, that's relatively recent. Also goes on to state that the town advised the property owner to rectify the drop-off area with new soil. The property owner clarified the topsoil was removed to mitigate drainage issues at the time and noted he will restore the grading with new soil. Now that memo is dated it's dated today, but we received it last week. So I'm thinking that there was a violation. We know there was a violation. It doesn't appear, according to the memo, that it has been corrected. And so as I said, what is the repercussion? I would have thought that there'd be something rather than nothing. And I'm wondering if this is something that staff can follow up with, because I raised this during the meeting where we heard the application and the report, and there are some issues here that will affect the neighborhood. setback is one of them. But certainly, if we know that there's been a violation, I would have thought that we would do something rather than nothing.
Ms. Deloria, do you want to comment on that and perhaps look into that and follow up? I'm thinking. Well, Ms. Deloria, do you wish to comment on that and perhaps provide some additional info?
Mr. Chair, through you to His Worship, yes, I agree the CRM is still active and that's what it said in the memo. But my discussion with the chief building official is, yes, there was a contravention that happened. And again, because the time has passed and I don't think he was of the opinion that any charges can be laid. But because we would be a process that we would be following, it would be taken care of through that process.
So just to clarify, if there were any issues related to the site being altered, the intent is to rectify that as part of the development of the property?
That's correct.
Okay. Your Worship, did you want to follow up?
I don't want to be flogging a dead horse here, but maybe the memo is somewhat inaccurate, but it does say there was a CRM. It does say the topsoil removal did contravene the town's site alteration bylaw. So that seems to be fairly clear. And that was apparently according to the chief building official. So if there was a contravention, there was a contravention. If there wasn't a contravention, then there wasn't a contravention. But it seems to me that, according to this memo, there was a contravention. So I'd appreciate it if there was some follow-up on this.
Certainly. Ms. Deloria, can you just provide council with some follow-up information on that? Just for my own purposes, I'd be curious to know if we would typically engage in enforcement action through charges or something if this comes to our attention, or if our intent would be to try to rectify the issue. That might provide some clarity as well going forward.
Mr. Chair, absolutely, I would be able to take that with the CBO and provide that information to council.
Thank you very much. Was there anything else, Your Worship?
No, I'm fine, thank you.
Okay. Any other members of council? Councillor, before I go back to you, Councillor Noyes, do any other members of council have any questions or comments about the report? Councillor Noyes, go right ahead.
Thank you, Councillor Dubanow. I just noticed in the staff report, it says, should a member of council wish to move the amendment suggested in this memorandum, that we recommend that Lavinia Street to be amended to require a minimum driveway width of 5.8 meters. So I would move that amendment.
Ms. Deloria, is the current plan right now to construct at 5.8 meters and this would just essentially put it on and ensure that it is done? Okay. You wanted to move that, Councillor Noyes?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments with regard to the amendment that's proposed by Councillor Noyes? And basically, just to recap, this is just to confirm the width of the driveway to ensure that there's the width for two vehicles? Okay, so I'm seeing none, so I'll call the question then. All those in favor? So that's carried. So we'll return back to the report as amended. Are there any additional questions or comments? So I'm seeing none. So then I'll call the question on the report as amended. All those in favor? So that's carried. Thank you very much. Wow, no more reports. That's unusual for me. Any new business or inquiries this evening from council? Wow. Any questions regarding the business status report? Well, in that case, Your Worship, I hand the chair back to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. That takes us to infrastructure services and the streamlined agenda for Councillor Noyes.
Thank you, Mayor Redekop. Infrastructure Services is now in session. There are no presentations and delegations. That brings us to report number IS 14, 2023. Does someone want to put it on the floor? Thank you. Councillor Flagg.
That was already on the floor.
Already on the floor. Okay, well, it's on again. Second time. Okay, so this is the municipal parking lot use and maintenance policy. Any comments or questions? Councillor Lewis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to say that I'm glad that we took the opportunity to have some additional comments from the public on this matter. I know it was circulated to the BIA, and I'm just glad we took that additional step.
Any other comments or questions? Mayor Redekop?
Yeah, I had just a couple of questions on wording. And the first one is on page 17.
Of the policy or the report?
Well, this would be the total package. It's page 17. And it has to do with, so section 6.1A, in any municipal parking lot, no person shall park any vehicle for the purpose of hire. What if we have, what if we had a taxi as an example, parking in a parking lot at an event waiting for a fare? Does that get caught?
Who should I direct that question to? Mr. Dubanow?
Through the mayor, that would be correct, just as the as that section is defined as 6.1A.
Well, I wonder if I might suggest that maybe then we look at the definition of park or parking and make sure that that has some type of exemption for somebody who's stopping for a short period of time to pick up a fare, or, I mean, technically speaking, if the parking lot over here at the Leisureplex is a parking lot, which it is, I see the on-demand transit sitting there waiting for people to come off the bus. Technically speaking, that would be a violation. So perhaps we could look at the wording of that. And then the second item in the same paragraph 6.1 is the, find it, is the last item, I think. And that is, the possession of liquor is prohibited in a parking lot. No person shall bring into a parking lot or have in their care, custody, or possession, while in a parking lot, without the approval of the corporation, and only then under the authority of the special occasion permit, blah, 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 liquor. So theoretically, you go to the beer store, pick up a case of beer, you go to the arena to watch a hockey game, you come back out. If you got that case of liquor in your car in that parking lot, that's a violation. So I think maybe we could look at the possibility of making reference to open liquor or beer or whatever. So those were the only things that I picked up, and I'm quite happy to support this moving forward, and I am happy that we received at least some comments from the public and that we also consulted the BIAs. So thank you.
Any further questions? Councillor Flagg.
Thank you, Chair. I noticed that the parking is in effect from 8 a.m. Do the machines allow you to pay before 8 a.m.? And I'm speaking specifically about Crystal Beach and the boat ramp and so forth, where many are out before that time. And can they pay till noon or something like that and be parked there at 6?
Yes, through the councillor, yes, they can.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further comments or questions? Okay, see, now I have a few. In regard to the same page that the mayor was on, the 6.1, and I think it's kind of caught in there later on, but in one place it says you can't sell or do anything on the property, but there are occasions like the Spring Fest and other things where we're actually using the parking lot as a venue. But I think later on it does say, as long as you got permission from the town for the event, you're okay, right? So it kind of supersedes the other one. And I don't quite know where it is on this, but it's in here somewhere. It's a big report. It talked about 20% of the overnight parking be restricted to 20%, and also talked about 30-day parking, like $100 for 30, I guess it's 31 days for parking. Who gets the pride? Like, how do we pick and choose?
To the councillor, so currently the thought is really as a first come first serve, and staff are looking at just portioning just a small portion, the 20%, for the overnight parking, so as not to overwhelm the neighborhood with overnight parking.
Thank you. Would there be a location where someone rents it for, let's say, the $100 a month, and he rents all 20 spaces, all 20%, or whatever is available for rent, and then he just keeps renewing it. How do we get around that?
Again, through Councillor Noyes, the intent here is one permit per applicant. So if they're looking to get 20 permits for one application, that's not something that staff would be endorsing.
Okay, thank you. Seeing that there's no other questions, all those in favor of the report? The report carries. Oh, and I did want to comment that it was a very well-written report, and was a lot of work put into it, and I do recognize that Jennifer is doing a great job on her new assignments. That brings us to report IS 17-2023, closure of the traveled section of Shirkston Road, Point Dubanow, north of Michener. Somebody wants to move it?
I'll move it.
Okay, I'm just waiting. Okay, so that's, report is now on the floor for any comments or questions. Councillor Dubanow.
Yeah, thank you very much, Madam Chair. Just a quick comment. I'm actually quite happy to see this moving forward. I've wondered for quite some time why that little section of Shirkston Road in between Point Dubanow and Michener was kind of existing there. It's a very weird intersection. It's difficult to navigate. Speaking with Councillor Flagg earlier, there's some similar ones on Ott Road up in Ward 6. They're just not safe. So, if we can, we might have to spend a little money to put up signs, but I think as far as legacy costs and maintenance is concerned, I think this is a smart move. I'm really happy to see this moving forward, and I will be supporting this, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Redekop?
Yeah, I just had a couple of a question and a comment, and the first, well, actually two questions. First one deals with the intersection of Birdie and Ridge, and there is a visibility issue, and I know there's a reference in the report to some improvements at the southwest corner or the southwest quadrangle, and I presume that relates to some improvements of the sight lines?
I would assume so, yes. I'm seeing George shaking his head, yes.
That's correct. There is some minor vegetation removal for sightlines.
And then the second deals with the intersection of Michener, Point Dubanow, Shirkston Road. So now going eastbound, you're on Michener, you'll come to the intersection with Shirkston, I presume, or sorry, with Point Dubanow Road. I presume there'll be a stop sign for you on Michener. You'll make a right-hand turn and then a left-hand turn on to Shirkston. Is that the way it's going to look?
That's correct.
And then going eastbound, you'll be on Shirkston Road. You'll hit the intersection of Point Dubanow. There'll be a stop sign. You'll make a right-hand turn onto Point Dubanow Road, and then you'll make a left-hand turn onto Michener to proceed east.
That is correct. In addition, there's also a guide rail proposed when you get to that stop sign at Shirkston and Point Dubanow.
And there already is, I think, a stop sign at Michener and Point Dubanow Road going eastbound.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. That will certainly be a traffic calming measure.
Thank you for that, for those comments. I have had people, not today or yesterday, that did comment when this first came up, people who live in the general area, not the people that about the changes, and they did have some concerns about it, but I think safety is the priority here. I do have one question about, or a comment about Birdie Street at Ridge Road North. That's been closed now for a while. We did it temporarily, and it's worked. I haven't heard any complaints at all. But I did have someone who's been following this, who's a pretty good, well-known historian in Fort Erie. That particular triangle, he thinks, has some historical benefit or whatever. There's some history there on that particular area. And he even asked about the history happened here. That particular site itself should be looked at for some historical thing, particularly if you're going to do any, again, the roads are there, so I don't think we're going to be digging anything. But anyway, that's just a comment I wanted to pass on. Okay, no further comments. All those in favor? The report carries. That brings us to new business inquiries. Seeing none, that brings us to the business status report. Seeing none, infrastructure services is now handed back to the mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Noyes. That takes us to corporate and community services. Councillor McDermott.
Thank you, Worship. Corporate Community Services is now in session. We have a presentation and delegation tonight. Kelly Davis, the Manager of Digital Services, and Chris McQueen, the Chief Administrative Officer.
My name is Chris McQueen. I'm the Chief Administrative Officer for anybody watching in the public. Just wanted to give a brief introduction. Kelly Davis, our Manager of Digital Services, is going to run you through a brief presentation. The presentation tonight is about IT modernization. As Council is keenly aware, the pace of technology has changed quite substantially in the last decade, or even less so in the last couple of years, driven by a number of events that has increased people's awareness and use of mobile remote technologies. It's really changed the way that the town has been interacting with the public and the way that public enjoys to receive the kind of services that we're involved with. A lot of increase in mobile technology and the tech savviness of the public that we're dealing with. We've moved forward to set some guiding principles because we have a lot of IT modernization projects, IT implementation projects that certainly need that level of rigor where we're ensuring that the decisions that we're making around IT modernization follow a higher order set of guiding principles, and Kelly's going to talk a little bit more about that. And these are guiding principles that will guide and help us with decisions on IT investigations, IT upgrades, IT new technology adoption, etc. So Kelly will be going through and previewing approximately 8 or 9 more significant IT projects that the town has had sort of on its radar for future in order to keep pace with that technology. So Kelly will talk a little bit more about that in differing stages of investigation through to implementation. So I'm going to turn it over to Kelly Davis, our Manager of Digital Service, to go through the presentation, and then we'll be happy to answer any questions. So over to you, Kelly.
Move this up a bit. Technology. Okay. Thanks for that, Chris, and for the introduction. And it's really great to see everybody again. It's been a while since I've been up here to chat with you, whether that's been intentional or not. Maybe it has been, I'm not sure, but here I am to talk to you about modernization. Before we get into this, I just want to tell you, I didn't deep dive into low-level IT issues. I stripped that out of this presentation. I took out all the acronyms, tried to make this as user-friendly as we can, but interrupt me if I'm talking about something that you're not quite sure about. So in terms of modernization, I want to make sure that we understand what that is. So in terms of modernization as a definition, it's in front of you now, but what we're trying to accomplish here at the town is to make sure that those legacy systems that are in place or have been in place over a period of time are either upgraded, migrated to a point where we are better servicing the public and making sure that our staff are looking at those types of modernizations as beneficial, and they're being adopted by not only the public but by our staff as well. And in terms of modernization internally, it's not really a digital services initiative. And I just want to make that clear. It's a corporate initiative. I'm not dragging people into this. This is something that Mr. McQueen over the last year, myself, directors, we all see this as a benefit to the corporation. So I want to make sure that we all understand that modernization is a corporate movement in terms of pushing things forward. It's not even a project. I mean, my project management experience in education tells me that projects have a start and an end. I don't see modernization ever ending. We've got a bunch of projects under modernization that will end, but they'll be replaced by new projects or new technologies or disruptive technology that we didn't even see coming. ChatGPT is a good example of that. So you've all heard of it. In fact, I put into ChatGPT, write me a modernization presentation for council, and it spit out something pretty good, but I didn't use it. Anyway, those are all things that are coming down the road, and that's in its infancy. So we have to be aware of these things. We never really want to be on the bleeding edge, but we'll be on kind of the cutting edge, and to make sure that we're adopting technology that's industry standard and that our staff are familiar with. So in terms of what is modernization, as Mr. McQueen stated, we're trying to keep pace with what's going on out there in the real world. Sometimes we get caught up with what goes on in a municipality, and we all do, in terms of my peers at other municipalities. We're trying to keep pace with what's going on in a responsible manner. Risk mitigation, this to me is important. I want to make sure that when people come in, staff come in, members of the public come in to see what we're doing at Town Hall, either through websites or public-facing services, those services are always up and running and that they're current and they give valuable information back to the public. The last two, operational effectiveness and enhanced citizen service, kind of go hand in hand. Everything we do here in terms of IT and new technology looks at how do we approach services? How can we better deliver those services to the public through technology? So what we're trying to do at the town through our senior leadership is take more of a digital first approach to problem solving. How can we look at these things, not rework traditional ways of doing things, but look at ways that technology can help us in moving things forward. So that's the idea. And key organizational impacts. So the first bullet point, in validating key guidelines, we're trying to set up guidelines corporately and as a group that when we're investigating and looking at different technologies, it's the same group of decisions that are being made around certain guidelines, that these are not things that we're saying, we're taking this approach to infrastructure services or this approach to another division or department, that we're doing this in a homogeneous way and pushing the corporation ahead together using the same guidelines and principles. That's the idea. Improved operation efficiency, that just to us is in our DNA. Like when I say us, I mean the staff at the town of Fort Erie. So that goes without saying. How can we best use technology to move that forward? The third bullet point, enhanced ability to take on new challenges. This is really important. We have to build technology in a way that allows us to make those right-hand turns when we don't see them coming, like COVID, for instance. So we have to build those technologies that they're not sitting on an island, that they're robust, that we can adapt to new things that come down the pipe. We can't always get that right, but we'll do our best. Adoption of modern technologies. In this second last bullet, we've talked about this many times, where we're getting staff now that have certain demands for technology. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that, but having the right technology in place also encourages people to want to work here. And people talk about that, trust me. Like my peers, people that have moved to other organizations from our organization, we go back and forth and we talk about what works, what doesn't work, why I would want to work there, why I don't want to work there. They're using antiquated systems, whatever it is. It's an important part of keeping people in the town of Fort Erie and also attracting people. And the last one is proof service accessibility, convenience, transparency. Those are all, again, kind of in our DNA here at the town of Fort Erie. Improving transparency is big with my group because we do have public-facing tools, specifically the website, Kevin's communication group with social media. Transparency is a big part of what we do, and that's all part of the modernization approach. Drivers for change, there's more than three. What I did is tried to group them together so that it made sense instead of having pages and pages of these things. COVID obviously was something that we had to adapt to. What we tried to do is take a bad situation, learn from that, take all the good things that we did as a corporation. I'm proud of my team for like pushing us to the point where we could deliver services without anybody in this town hall. And that was important. But what we've learned is that people can work remotely or people can do hybrid meetings or those types of things. We want to take those positives and keep pushing them forward. And the things that didn't work, we'll drop them. So COVID is a big kind of instigator for us to move things forward. And staff. So this is where I get to staffing making demands of ourselves. So we are seeing a big demographic shift in staff. We've had a lot of turnover. There's no doubt about that. And every municipality has had a lot of turnover. But what we're seeing is that the new staff, perhaps they are younger, grew up with IT. It's just part of what they do every day. There's no question about that. where our more experienced staff who have been here for a while, they take a different approach, where sometimes we would layer IT on top of a challenge that we have to try to resolve that. What I'm finding is that new staff don't do that. It's just expected that is part of the solution, that it's there and ready to go. So as a group, and specifically the digital services, we have to realize that we've got a big spectrum of people that are coming in, and we have to make sure that everybody's on board with what we're trying to accomplish. And security, for me, being kind of head of technology here within the corporation is big. So you've all heard about ransomware, people getting hacked, all that kind of thing. I don't want to dwell on this too much because it's depressing, but there's a lot of people out there looking to do bad things. And what we try to do at the town is build up a digital wall around our corporation to make sure that those people are kept at the gates, that they can't get in. The challenge is we have to keep rebuilding the wall all the time, you know, that digital wall. And now that we're allowing people to, say, work outside the wall, work from home, work out in the field, wherever they are, they're outside the wall now. So now we have to build secure tunnels to allow them into the wall without letting those other people in through. So that's always at the forefront of what we do in technology. So measuring success, modernization objectives, I'm going to go through these pretty quickly. The town's digital services are simple and uncomplicated. We hear that time and time again in the technology industry as a whole. It's too complicated. Only the IT people know how to use that, you know, and we do. We're thinking this is simple, but we're trying to take the user approach and say, well, how would the end user look at this? So that's one of the initiatives. I'm not going to go through all these, but all the channels are interconnected in the digital service experience. And what that means, channels, how do we get information? We've got so many ways that information flows in and out of this place, whether it's web, walk-ins, whether it's sitting on a database, social media. How do we consolidate all that information to get to the right people at the right time so they can get back to the people using the same channel or the same medium? So that's something that's on our agenda. Equipment, of course, equipping the workforce, we just talked about that. It's the idea of giving people the tools they need to do their job. And that's really important right now. And it's becoming more of our job, and it's taking away from some of the things we used to do. So now we've got mobile users, we got mobile fire force, we got tablets in all of our trucks, we've got everybody out in the field doing things remotely, where before they were going out, recording things, coming back to their desk, and retyping it in. No, that's all out in the field now. So we're trying to equip those people. And the last one, of course, is enhance the efficiency of digital service delivery, always part of our rationale. And key accomplishments to date, we started modernization, not as the term modernization, I'd say before COVID. We started looking at some of these projects that we wanted to do, but we didn't really have a homogeneous way of looking at it and calling it modernization. And to Mr. McQueen's benefit, kind of rounded all those things up and put it into modernization. But these are some of the things we've accomplished so far prior to that term coming up. I don't want to get into it too much, but the migration of GIS, and if you're not familiar with GIS, I cannot stress to you enough how important GIS is to our corporation. I would say that over 90% of our data is spatial in nature, which means we can map it. And if we can map it, we show it on a map. And those maps tie into our finance system, they tie into our building system. So at the back end, the tentacles of the GIS are going everywhere, and they're tying up everything. So we do use GIS. I'm sure you've seen reports here most nights. They have some kind of mapping embedded in them. We went from an old legacy GIS system we couldn't do a lot with to something very modern, and it's going to be the foundation of our asset management system. So we're really happy. New website. To the credit of the communications group, we work really well with them and the entire corporation. This is a colossal effort. We have over 300 web pages that involve every single department, and everybody contributed. So that was we had a soft launch about a week and a half ago. We're kind of have our ear to the ground right now for things that we want to change and maybe add, and then we're going to do more of a hard launch within the next 2 weeks or so. Yeah. the new AV system in here, and that's allowed us to be more accessible to the public. We're not an AV shop. That's not our specialty, but we work with AV companies. It's a whole profession unto itself. But then that was a challenge, to get a system that was not designed to do that, and then incorporating Zoom and all those other things. That was a big accomplishment for us. We developed a citizen portal, if you're not aware of it. We developed MyFE. MyFE is really important to the town. This is something that citizens can log into, register. There's no cost, obviously. This is where they can get their bills, their water and tax bills. They can look at their previous water and tax bills. They don't have to interact with us, which, to be frank, most people don't want to do. So we're trying to build those services that the philosophy, at least we have in digital services, is let's build those kind of self-service services so the people that do want to do that can do that, and then we can spend more time helping the people that can't. So that's the idea, is that if we can offload those services to people that want to do it, and then we have more time to help the people that can't. So MyFE is a good start to that. We're just going to keep building on that. So all of our town services that we can get people to use through the portal, we're going to, and it's secure. Ooh, there's my first acronym. Virtual private network, so we did develop that. I'm not going to get into too much about that, but it does allow us secure access into the town hall, but it has enabled people to work from home and so on. It's a big effort, and it's a big commitment, and the security is tight. And the last one is our emergency offsite center. So we did talk about EOC for quite a while, I'd say the last 2 years or so, where we had a request to create a site somewhere in the town that would allow people to exit here and work from there. So if we have a fire, some kind of flooding, emergency where we lose all power here, we can uproot our emergency team, plunk them down in that spot. They would have all the access to information as if they were here, even though all our servers and things are down. So we created a site that allows us to do that. It's dormant, but we can spark it up in about between 2 and 3 hours. It'll be up and running with all our services. It also acts as a pseudo backup for some of the things that we do here. And migrating and upgrading. So it wasn't just us talking about this. We did have the Perry Group come in, and I'm sure you've seen this in different reports. So the Perry Group came in. They were funded by a modernization grant that we got back in, I think it was 2020 when we first got it. And they reviewed our software and our practices and did make some recommendations. Some of those were upgrade, and some of them were migrate. So get away from certain software or upgrade the software you have to, say, a cloud-based software or something different. So we onboarded that. There were a lot of suggestions and recommendations. So coming out of that, we as a leadership team created the Digital Services Working Group. This is an important group now within the corporation. The idea there is that we would take all of those initiatives and prioritize them, resource them, and push them forward to make sure that they are on time, on budget, all of those things. And that's part of that modernization umbrella. And that group is primarily myself, the directors, and the CAO. So we're guiding the corporation through this process as a leadership team. And we've been meeting quite regularly. And here's some of the projects that we have on the fly. It shouldn't say future projects, it should say current projects and future. I'm not going to go into great detail on these, but in case you haven't heard, we've got at the top, planning's doing a planning and permit licensing system. And I have to be honest with you, we've had some rocky times with that, and we're as the Digital Services Working Group, we're trying to work through that, smooth out those challenges, and try to get that rolled out. But that's a big challenge right now, because it involves a lot of different people. So we are working on that. Asset management, I'm sure you've heard Kelly Walsh's team are leading up that charge. They've been here a couple times. It's a corporate initiative. We're working with them on that. Mobile hardware, what we're trying to do there is recognize this as a pandemic initiative. So following the pandemic, we realized that our staff need to be more mobile. So if there's another pandemic, or we have to get out of this building, or whatever it is, the staff have the tools to walk out the door and start working anywhere. So the idea is data anywhere, anytime, any place. That's the idea. So they could walk out, work from home, or a designated area that we have. So we've been working on that. Oops. Hold on. And the website's completed, we went through that, and I want to get to the middle one, which is purposely put in the middle because it's very important to me, and that's the notes migration. So we are, it's called HCL Note Shop. That's how we read our email, that's how we read our calendaring, that's how we read our to-do lists, that's how we do a lot of those things. It's been on the radar for some time now. It's a number one priority for myself, and I know for the digital services group, that's high on our radar right now. We're looking, I don't think it's a secret to say we're looking at Microsoft to be in that ecosystem of Microsoft. It's a new venture for us, not that we can't do it, but we want to make sure we're doing it the right way. So responsibly, the licensing structure for Microsoft is complicated, and we want to make sure that when we go down that road, we're squeezing every single app we can out of that licensing, and that's where we're at right now, so we're in a good space to keep moving that forward. Security and audit, not started, even though I said it was an important component of my job. We have funding to do let's call it a level 1 security audit. I want to ramp that up to level 3. So I'm working with the team again to get it so we have the funding in place to work and look at a more intrusive and extensive security audit for the town. And I want to do that year over year in some fashion because things change all the time. Typically we get a report back saying good, 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 bad, good, and then we start picking things off from the bottom. That's the idea, just to make sure that we are secure. We've rolled out security 2FA, it's called, so that's two-factor authentication, just like you do at the bank. So if you log into the bank and it says, okay, I just texted you a number or I just sent you something, we've rolled that out to all the staff for all of our web applications to keep them safe and secure. It's one of those things that our insurance company demands too. So there's other forces kind of pushing us down this road. And finance and HR is going to be a colossal project, and we're looking forward to it. We're really looking forward to it, working with Jonathan Jansen and his team to push it forward. In fact, there was a meeting today about it, and that is going to be a longer process, but it's going to be worth it in the end. And records management has just come on the radar. So all those decades of paper that we have in this place, decades and decades of paper, we want to make sure that it is stored digitally, securely, indexed, so we can get at it quickly, so things tied together. It's a more efficient process, and I believe Margaret Taddeo is looking after that, at least trying to push that forward right now. So resourcing, the financing for most of these projects have already been noted in the budgets moving forward. Some haven't, most of them have. Part of the process, I guess, of modernization is to make you aware that we may come to the budget with requests for a modernization project. And chances are if it hits your desk during the budget process, it's already gone through our Digital Services Working Group Committee, and it's part of that process. It's not Digital Services doing this as a rogue entity or a department doing this as a rogue entity. It's been thought out in a homogeneous way. And staffing, so the peer group did suggest that we look at an additional staff member in digital services. What we did as a team is looked at it holistically and said what would be the best fit, and we're looking at hiring a business systems analyst. So somebody that can bridge the gap between technology and those business units like finance or infrastructure services and act as that go-between or conduit to make sure that technology is represented well and vice versa, that the functional units are represented well. And we anticipate that person coming out in the next 2 months. And just looking forward, like I said before, the town's taking a digital-first approach to service delivery. I think that should be our motto, moving it forward. We are striving to get the rest of the corporation on board with this, and I don't think there's going to be any challenges to that. It's just moving everybody forward at the same pace. And then I think the last point is really important, where our digital services group understand that modernization, as I said, is an ongoing opportunity to reinvent ourselves. And it's not going to be a one-time checkbox. I'm not going to come back here and hand it to you and say, you know, we did it. I see this as an ongoing thing. I should be here next year, probably giving a similar talk on what we're doing next or what we accomplished in 2023 and those types of things. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Davis, for that outstanding review. Any comments or questions with regards to Councillor Christensen?
Thank you very much, Mr. Davis. This is very exciting. I can't speak highly enough of listening to what you've said and the concept of a fundamental underlying approach that is about modernization as compared with fixing or running after as technology moves forward. I've experienced both, and I've also experienced situations where technology drives the rethinking, and I'm thinking of the financial system that the old Metro Toronto did, where essentially we moved from a bookkeeping system to a financial management system driven by the demands of technology as well as the demands of governance. So I really appreciate what you're doing, and I look forward to seeing further results of the work you're doing.
Thank you.
Councillor Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Davis, for your presentation. Just a couple of comments. I am really excited about the customer service focus on the angle that that staff are taking on this, and in particular, the citizen portal, the new and improved website, which I think is rather much user-friendly. I can actually find what I was looking for and found before the second time when I go looking for it. Good. And that's just with it being launched recently. And also the CRM improvements on the reporting, or when a ticket's created and an issue's been looked into, that it actually has a way of getting back to the person that brought the complaint in. And certainly recognize the work that IT and all of the departments have done to get it this far. I just had a quick question in terms of the website. Has staff given any consideration to allowing the website to be translated into different languages using, say, Google Translate widget or app?
Yeah, through you, Councillor. We have actually. Yeah, we looked at that in the initial setup. It's possible that you can have, I'm going from memory here, it's possible that you can have that, definitely you can have a drop down if you want, but you can also just have your own browser set up to do that translation for you. So we looked at the French angle on this and thought, do we do a kind of a French translation on every page, or do we allow the end user just to have that translation done for them? So at this stage, that's what we did.
Perfect. And then the last question I had was with respect to accessibility and how accessibility is considered when the town's looking at ways to modernize the approach to the digital service.
Yeah, through you, Councillor. Accessibility is a big part of what we do. We work with Ms. Bradman a lot and her team, so she has the accessibility group. Sometimes we run things through the group, or sometimes we run it right through her. She's a great resource for that. Website was a prime example where we had her on the team to review everything that goes forward with what we call AODA, but accessibility for sure.
Perfect, and I'm quite excited about this, and very much enjoyed the presentation.
Thank you.
Councillor Noyes.
Thank you, Councillor McDermott. Actually, Councillor Lewis asked my question about accessibility.
I get a
Your Worship.
Yeah, I had a question, and that had to do with council access to the GIS information that staff taps into frequently. We see them pull up a map. They've got the water lines, the sewer lines, the environmental overlays. How do A, I don't believe that we have access to that, and B, can we get access to that, or is that something for a higher order than you to deliberate on?
Mr. Davis.
There's no higher order than yourself there.
So that's, that's called sucking up.
I've been here long enough to know.
You have.
Hey, if it works.
Yeah, but through you, Councillor, to the Mayor, there are ways that we can give you access to that. In fact, there are ways the public have access to it right now. So what I can do is share that with you through an email in terms of how you get access to that spatial data. What we don't do is expose personal information in that those things that lie outside of our wall. So we don't want to expose individuals or, for instance, tax information, that type of thing. But we certainly can give you access for anything outside of that. And it's available now, so I'll just send you a link to show you how to do that.
Great. No, that's great.
Your Worship.
While you were doing your presentation. I think Councillor Lewis and I both signed into my Fort Erie.
You're good at looking to the right as I am, as I am to the right.
Are there any more questions of Mr. Davis?
No.
Seeing none?
Thank you.
Excuse that. So we'll move on to COS 04 2023. Can I get a motion for that? Councillor Lewis, any comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. Any new business inquiries? Councillor Dubanow and then Councillor Noyes.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to make a quick comment with regard to the rally at Douglas Memorial Hospital this past week. I saw several councillors had an opportunity to attend. MPP Gates was there, Regional Councillor Encina, the Mayor. Unfortunately, I couldn't attend. I had some work obligations. I had an opportunity while I was running errands to drive by and see that they had a great turnout. There were people coming and constantly as I was there. I just wanted to comment because I know how important this is. And it was just a work obligation. I couldn't get there with the other individuals. And with it being in Ward 2 and everything, I wanted it on the record. I wanted to be there. Something else had come up with work. So just wanted to share that, get it on the minute so everyone, in case they ask, they know. So thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Noyes?
Thank you, Councillor McDermott. This could have been asked, I guess, under infrastructure, but I'm putting it under corporate community services because of our presentation today
Well, that's a
in
good
regards
way
to
to do
digital
that.
services. So it's about the Niagara Boulevard and the broadband service. I've been asked again. I know I brought this up a few months ago. We did get a report saying, it's progressing, it's progressing. Well, according to the residents, it's not progressing very much. They're still wondering when. They were the first area started, I think, and they're still not completed. And I've had a few inquiries again, like saying, when?
You want to comment on that,
Yeah.
Your Worship?
So as you know, Bell Canada has been working on this for some time. They've been running into and had run into some archaeological assessment requirements. I know that they've recently been out continuing that work. The last that I heard was they were supposed to be starting some construction in June. This is now July. I don't know that they've started that at all. In the meantime, Rogers has also started to work on a project, not just along the Niagara Parkway, but for much of rural Fort Erie. And they would have the same archaeological assessment requirements to clear as Bell. If Bell has done the work, that actually facilitates Rogers' work. But on municipal road allowances, which is where fiber would be buried, and they're both talking about fiber, burying fiber. On the municipal road allowances, they don't really need to go through an archaeological assessment, so that when they get into those rural areas, and much of your ward is rural, they'll be able to move along quite quickly. They have established a time frame. The time frame seems to be fairly aggressive, and I know that they're looking at having a fair bit of work, Rogers, having a fair bit of work done in rural Fort Erie by the end of next year. And Bell is supposed to have, they were hoping to have their fiber on the Parkway operational by the fall. That's the latest. I get it that the residents are frustrated. I hear from them frequently. And unfortunately, we don't have much control other than to offer them assistance. And we do assist any of these communications companies if there are letters of support with respect to grant funding. We assist them as we did with Rogers. If there are processes that we can utilize to facilitate their work, we do that as well.
Councillor Noyes?
I appreciate that response, and it's kind of what I kind of expected. But again, the residents along the boulevard, I'm getting the same calls that you are frustrated. And I think part of the thing is that they're hearing June, and now they're hearing fall. And they've heard the archaeological issues were raised 2 or 3 years ago. The holes have been there for a long time, and now they're seeing progress, which is a good thing, in other areas of Fort Erie. and they kind of feel like they're the forgotten few that, you know, I know Stevensville is being done probably as we speak. They're digging the holes and stuff. So they're just really getting frustrated, and I don't blame them, because they were the first ones started, and they still haven't seen any, they still can't use it. So I'm glad, let's hope and keep our fingers crossed it is fall, but I think we may need to stay on the provider to say, we want weekly updates. You know, just so that they know that, you know, that we're not going to come fall. Like now it's July and it was supposed to be June. So when it comes fall, which is September 21st, like we want dates, we want to know if anything's going to be delayed and why, and just basically keep them, keeping their eye on this particular ball, because it looks like they're looking everywhere but there. But anyway, that's the feeling of the residents on the boulevard.
Your worship.
Yeah, just a couple of other points. When this project started, the costs seemed to be financially viable. The costs have escalated for at least for Bell. Excuse me. So I know that despite the fact that this may not be quite as financially rewarding as they thought, they're still committed to this project. The question will be the timing. I've urged them on a couple of occasions to reach out to the residents, because the residents are their potential future customers. And I know that they did that at least once. I don't know whether they've done it more. I have a contact. I'm in communication with him fairly regularly, and usually it's you know, the same answer, that there's this reason or that reason or what have you. I will reach out to him again to try to get a further update. The last time I communicated with him was about a month ago. And so I know that it's very frustrating. There are a lot of business people that live along the parkway. Some of them are doing international business. They are reliant upon this. They've been looking for other solutions. And I appreciate their concern. If they have students in the household, that's another issue. So we now know that internet connectivity it's a necessity. It's no longer a luxury, it's a necessity. So I'll reach out and let members of council know what I find out.
Anything further? I'll just add to that, there'll be nobody forgotten here, because you will always remember. So, you know, it's pretty clear that nobody's going to be forgotten here as long as you keep reminding us. You can be sure of that.
That's your forte.
Yeah, you like that? Any further business inquiries? Okay. Anything on the business status report? I know that was riveting. Okay, I take it it's a no, so it's back to you, Your Worship.
Yes, that takes us, thank you very much, Councillor McDermott. That then takes us to scheduling of meetings. Any meetings scheduled? Councillor Noyes.
Yes, there's a 40 not-for-profit housing meeting on the 12th, which is this Wednesday at 9 o'clock at Betty's Restaurant.
That's July the 12th. Anyone else? Councillor Lewis.
Crystal Beach BIA meeting on the 12th as well at 6 o'clock at the Crystal Ridge Arena.
Okay. Are there any others? If not, Councillor Dubanow.
Yes, I'd like to move that we adjourn our council and committee meeting at 7:09 p.m. this evening, Your Worship.
All those in favor? That is unanimous. So that meeting is closed, and Mr. Beauchamp has arisen. He tells me that he needs about 5 minutes to do a switchover to make sure that we've got two distinct meetings, because we do have a special council meeting coming up shortly. So we're going to take a 5-minute recess, and then we're going to come back. So we're back at 7:14.